Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me? Awesome. Okay, so I'm so sorry for the technical issues we've had this morning. I wish that we could have done things a little differently, but you know how technology is. When it works, it's wonderful. When it doesn't work the way you want it to, oh well. But this is live theater, and so I just want to bring this this movement of our 187th convention to an opening. So let's do that. And so now I will officially call this 187th convention of the Episcopal Diocese of Chicago to order. So, welcome everyone. It's my honor and privilege, although a little impacted, to start this convention right now. And I love being the chair. So, let's go forward and let me just make clear that we have interpretation services for this convention available in both Spanish and American Sign Language. And so, in just a moment, you'll see a globe at the bottom of your screen, prayerfully, this icon on the Zoom screen. If you would click it and select your preferred language, English, Spanish, or ASL, we'd be able to get started. And you who have Spanish language can hear everything consecutively, okay? So let's do that. We'll pause for just a moment now that we're in session officially and make sure that we have everything in order, okay? And we'll play that convention worship service later. Okay. All right then. So let's get things started. So within our diocese, there's a long-standing tradition of a convention offering. And so this year, today's offering will go to support the work of the Diocese of Chicago Sanctuary Task Force. We see that slide there. And so now more than ever, you all know that we should support our sanctuary task force, and their support is critically needed for asylum seeking families and individuals. Asylum seekers flee persecution and travel to other countries to seek safety and request asylum. Your gifts are gratefully received and will be used particularly in the areas of housing and legal support. And so, please give generously to this, and we'll continue with our voter orientation. So to begin, I'll call on Stacy Jackson, who will present us with information on voting at this convention. Stacy?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. You may have already seen it, but let's watch this excellent and already vintage voting video created by Kathleen Moore of Cantico Communications one more time to review how to vote at this convention and general procedures for participation today.
Thank you. We have a review of the ways in which you can participate in the convention coming up in the section when the parliamentarian gives rules of order. So why don't we move ahead, Bishop, and let the quorum be called, and then let the parliamentarian give the rules of order, which include instructions on how to participate in convention as well.
Okay, thank you, Crystal. So let me move on as instructed, and now we'll call on Lynn Bowers for a report on quorum.
Right, Reverend Madam, delegates and all assembled at this 187th Convention of the Diocese of Chicago. In the roll call taken by the registrars of convention at 9 a.m. this day, we have 144 clergy present out of a total 362, thus constituting a quorum in the clergy order. And we have a total of 187 lay delegates in attendance, representing 92 congregations out of a total of 102 congregations in this diocese, thus constituting a quorum in the lay order.
Bishop, you're muted.
Okay, so thank you, and I call on Michael Peregrine, Chancellor, to review the rules of order for a virtual convention.
Thank you, Bishop, and good morning. I'll give a fuller review of the rules of order right before we start debating our legislation and resolutions. At this point, though, our canons require me to give you all at least 2 hours advance notice that when we do get to that portion of convention, one of the action items involves amendments to our canons. So please stay tuned. I'll also remind everyone that back in 2020, this body approved rules of order for a virtual convention. And this body also confirmed that those rules would apply to any convention which the ecclesiastical authority determined would be held virtually. You can find those rules of order at the back of our diocesan canons, and those are always available on the diocesan website. Please use the raise hand function to be recognized by the Zoom host. Once you're recognized, you'll be able to unmute yourself. Please begin by first clearly stating your name and congregation. If you have raised your hand in error or no longer need to be recognized, please press the raised hand button again so that you are no longer raising your hand. Please note you're welcome to chat with another using the chat function, but this is not for official business. For official business, you should use the Q&A function. If you wish to be recognized and speak to the convention, use the raised hand function. Bishop?
All right then, thank you so much, Michael. So let's move on then to the nomination of convention officers. And so pursuant to our canons, I appoint the following to serve as officers for the 187th convention. Lynn Bowers as Secretary of Convention, Keith Campert as Treasurer, Michael Peregrine as Parliamentarian, and Newland Smith as Historiographer and Registrar. May I have a motion to elect these individuals? Please use, as Michael said, the raised hand function, and remember to clearly state your name and congregation when moving and seconding motions. Does anyone want to raise their hand for the motion?
Or if you're trying to raise your hand, let us know.
Yeah.
Bishop, it appears that Melissa Moore has raised her hand.
Awesome. Is there a second? The motion is made. Is there a second?
Yeah, I see several seconds, Bishop.
Awesome. So then we can say the motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, the question before us is the election of convention officers. Please indicate your vote using VPoll that will appear on your separate device or separate browser window. Vote yes to elect the nominated convention officers and vote no if you do not wish to elect them.
Bishop, we are now ready to close the vote.
Awesome.
Sophie, can you please display the results?
Okay. It looks like the motion passes, motion carries. And so we have 100% votes. So let's move on then. And then at this time, I'd like to acknowledge those who serve our diocese in the role of Chancellor, Assistant Chancellor, Chancellor Emeriti, and Church Attorney. They give their time and talent in so many different ways to benefit our congregations and our diocese. Their names and their firms are being displayed right now. First, starting with Mayor Michael, was kind enough to be with us today. Our thanks to each of them and to their firms for their pro bono support. Thank you all. All right then. And so we move forward again, and I call on Lynn Bowers, Secretary of Convention, for additional appointments.
The President of Convention has appointed the following Assistant Secretaries: Karen Gutierrez and TJ Houlihan. Teller: Stacy Jackson. Assistant Tellers: Brad Lindboom and Barnabas Pusner. The President of Convention has appointed the following convention committees: Audit Review Committee 2024, Lon Myers, Chair, Thomas Frank, Allison White. Finance Committee 2025, David Arch, Co-Chair, Pat Cornelius Woods, Co-Chair, Wes Kimes, Peter Lane, Brad Lindboom, Debbie Rakestraw, Michael Renner. Resolutions Committee, Todd Young, Chair, Kelly Eckmeyer, Jess Elfring Roberts, Richard Hoskins, Crystal Plummer, Courtney Reed. Nominations Committee, Emmy Eccles, Chair, Kathleen Basham, Miguel Briones, Fran Holliday. Annual convention reports as listed on the following slides have been received and published online prior to convention and will be recorded in the convention journal.
Well, thank you, Lynn. And now let's move on then. We are blessed in this diocese to have lay leaders and clergy who serve on various boards, bodies that help to promote the fidelity and of our diocese and of individual congregations and our overall mission and ministry in this diocese. The slideshow we will slide the names of those I have appointed to serve in various roles. The slides are advancing, so you have time to read the names of those people who are appointed. If you're not familiar with the work of these bodies, you will find a full description of each in our diocesan canons. Let's move forward then with those appointments. Okay, and so now that we've gone through all of them, I'd like to call for a motion to consent to these Episcopal appointments. Is there anyone who would like to make a motion?
Bishop Alonzo Pruitt has raised his hand.
Awesome. And so is there a second then? Thank you, Alonzo.
Bishop Larry Green has raised his hand.
Thank you, Larry. Is there any discussion? So hearing none and not being alerted to any, the question before us is the motion to consent to the Episcopal appointments as presented. Please indicate your vote using the VPoll that will appear on your separate device or separate browser window. Vote yes to elect the nominating commission officers and vote no if you do not wish to elect them.
Bishop, we will now close the vote. Sophie, can you please display the results?
So it appears that the motion carries. And so I will move forward then. Thank you for voting. And so in this diocese, we select members of our diocesan community to work in particular ministries in the service of the people of God. To those whose appointments have just been confirmed, let us move forward then, and if you would, indicate that you accept your calling to this ministry of service. You can do that by show of hands or message in the chat. And then I'll move forward with commissioning you all with a prayer. So let us pray. Everlasting God, strengthen and sustain these your servants, that with patience and understanding they may love and care for your people. Grant that together they may follow Jesus Christ, offering to you their gifts and talents through him who lives and reigns with you and the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you all who serve. I really appreciate it, and the entire diocese thanks you for your service. Okay, then, so we'll go forward then with the following slides, which list clergy newly ordained since 2023, the convention we had then, and clergy new to our diocese, and clergy called to new positions in our diocese. So let's look at the slides and welcome all those folks who we thank right now. Let's go forward with these transitions, etc., ordinations. We give thanks for all those who have been listed and their names appeared on our slide. I neglected to say that we also listed those who are retired, those who have died, new staff member, retired staff, and recognition of our closed churches. Let's I guess we'll go forward with the recognition of closed churches now, if we would. Yes. And thank you all for the ministry that has gone on in these wonderful churches. And so I think we're well timed right now to take a break. And so let's do a 10-minute break right now. Let's see, it's about a minute after 10 o'clock. So at 10:11, we'll come back from break, return promptly, but at 10:11, we'll move forward with our agenda. Thank you for that. Take a stretch break and we'll be right back at 10:11. Thank you. So now let us come back into our meeting, and I'd like to call on the co-chairs of the Diocesan Finance Committee to give the budget presentation. Pat Cornelius Woods is the warden of Diocesan Council, and David Ark is on the trustees. Is a trustee on Bishop and Trustees. So let me call on them, and thank you so much for giving this budget presentation for the 2025 budget. Thank you, Pat and David.
Thank you, Bishop Clark, and good morning, everyone. I'm Pat Cornelius Woods, and as the bishop mentioned, I am the warden of the Diocesan Council, and along with David Arch from Bishop and Trustees, we are the co-chairs for the Finance Committee of the Diocese. The Finance Committee is authorized by the Diocesan Council in February of this year. I'm not sure how to advance these slides. So there you go. Thank you. It's authorized by the Diocesan Council in February of this year to advise the bishop on developing a coordinated strategy for the diocese. The members are listed here and were included in the appointments you just saw. They are representative of each of the leadership groups that are in our diocese, Diocesan Council, Bishops and Trustees, the Standing Committee, as well as at-large members and trustees for the endowment as well. The budget which we are presenting to you today, again, was developed by the bishop and her staff in collaboration with our committee. The full budget details and a more extensive narrative explanation are posted online. I encourage you to review those if you have not. However, just to highlight a few key points of what you will hear about this budget, the budget does not include the impact of the sale of the 65 East Urin building pending completion of those discussions. It does, however, continue the work that was spearheaded by Bishop Clark in 2024 to forge a path to financial sustainability. Our diocese has struggled for many years with deficit budgets. The 2025 budget process reflects a lot of hard work and some tough choices, but its goal is to move us toward implementing gradual but significant reductions in these operating deficits. At the same time, the budget funds a 2025 strategic planning process, and it is our hope that that will allow us to both acknowledge the need and succeed in identifying informed, challenging decisions going forward with some broad consensus of input. Now, the result of the budget is a $3.8 million operating expenses. This excludes pass-throughs, which are those things that the diocese and diocesan offices receive on behalf of others and simply pass through for those purposes. The $3.8 million figure continues to reflect the core priorities identified by the bishop. It also continues to evaluate new ways to effectively utilize our staffing to meet those priorities. This pie chart shows the budget by the current department structure, but it's noteworthy to note that 58% of this budget across all departments represents compensation and benefits, supports people who are carrying out their priorities. The budget is about $250,000 less than last year, and that reflects some real pencil sharpening that we have attempted to do to reduce and manage costs. And although this is challenging, I think it will lay a foundation for sustainable operations moving forward. I'd like to just take a little bit of time to go through each of the departments briefly. So you can see what is included in them. The largest of these is the episcopacy, which is the bishop, her canon, the members of her immediate staff, and also responding to feedback of the diocesan community this year includes the new position of archdeacon. And most notably, it includes the new funding for undertaking the broad-based strategic planning process that can inform our future decisions. The Episcopy also is the department which includes the mandatory 15% assessment to the Episcopal Church, as well as funds for a virtual diocesan convention in the coming year. The Department of Ministries is essentially the department which supports congregations in transition. It includes funding for lay and clergy leadership development initiatives, multicultural ministries, our campus ministries, and will support the new youth council, which was recently announced. However, overall expenses in this department have come down this year because of some staffing changes. The departments of networking and development, while functioning as two departments, their combined areas of responsibility include community outreach and communications, which is led by Canon Crystal Plummer for networking, and our newly appointed canon for development, TJ Houlihan, is tasked with revitalizing giving in the diocese and has initiated a number of new activities, and his initial focus, I think, has been growth of the Bishop's Appeal. The Department of Administration and Finance, as the name implies, continues to support accounting and finance, human resources, and risk management activities. There have been some changes in this department due to outsourcing of building management responsibilities, and with the retirement of our former canon for administration, Anna Stefaniak, there will be and continues to be some restructuring around this area. And then lastly, the St. James Commons expenditures. This covers maintaining the building, 65 East Giron, pending its future sale. These are largely fixed costs, but they have been maintained stably during the last several years due to some really effective cost management. And as I mentioned before, in relating to some of the administrative restaffing, for 2025, the building operations and maintenance for St. James Commons will be outsourced to an outside management company. The effect of that is a slight shifting of expenses between administration and St. James. That pretty much lays out the expense side of our budget for 2025. And I'm going to yield to my colleague, David Arch, to discuss a little bit about the income and revenue that will cover that.
Thanks, Pat, and good morning, everybody. I'm going to be covering the sources of revenue we are budgeting in 2025 as described by this pie chart. I will cover each one separately as Pat covered the various areas of expense, with a notation that $790,000 is going to be drawn from the Bishop's Fund in the coming year to offset the higher expenditures and the deficit in the budget. Moving on to income from congregations. This source of income provides over 50% of the support of the diocese, and that's true again in 2025. The number is projected to decline slightly in 2025, and there's some explanation why I can offer you. While the common mission share pledges are requested to range between 11 and 15%, the average current year pledge is 5.6%. On to income from the endowment. You see here in front of you the various components of the endowment, which total $7.6 million in assets for the year ending in 2023. The formula for distribution of these assets to the diocese results in a $280,000 of support for diocesan operations in 2025. Other sources of support. Income from the Bishop's Appeal. The Bishop's Appeal income stream is budgeted to grow 78% in 2025. Fees and contributions include space occupied by the Cathedral and Episcopal Charities at 65 East Huron. Moving on, income from program and other fees. We're budgeting fee income from various conferences that offset a portion of the related expenses of these conferences. Most of the $251,000 budgeted in the other category come from the Idwal Hughes Trust. And next is income from the bishop's funds. This chart shows the current size of the bishop's funds at $6 million. This fund will provide over $1 million in support of the diocesan budget in 2025, including both investment earnings and funds planned to offset the anticipated deficit for the year. Now we get to my area, which is Bishop and Trustees. Bishop and Trustees holds title to the real property of the diocese and is budgeted to provide over $500,000 in pass-through funds for mission church upkeep and vitality grants in 2025. That's it for the revenue side, and I'm going to turn it back to my colleague, Pat. And thanks to all the people in the Finance Committee this year.
Yeah. I would like to say that pretty much concludes our summary of the 2025 budget. Again, I encourage all of you to go online and review the more extensive narrative and the budget detail if you have particular areas of focus that you'd like to hone in on. The other thing I would like to do, as David noted, the income supporting these budgets is over 50% comes from our congregations. And so our success in 2024 has really been highly dependent on that. And we'd like to extend our thanks to the 101 congregations that can pledge that support in this current year. And with that, thank you.
So, thank you all for your help, for your support, the 101 congregations that supported our budget. Thank you, Pat and David, for your leadership. And also thank you to the whole Finance Committee, and a special thanks to Rebecca Elfring Roberts, who's been working with us and trying to help us get our financial house in order the whole time. And so it's the hard work of many. The work of many has created a situation where we're really getting a hold on our financial viability in general. So thank you to everyone. All right then, so let's now switch over and move on to the convention address that I'll provide. So if we can just pivot a bit and move forward. Okay? So, good morning, everyone. Good morning, beloved of the Episcopal Diocese of Chicago. I'm so glad that we can be together again. We are gathered today to hear reports and vote on resolutions and do the other work of our convention. These, in some ways, may seem like items of the agenda of a business meeting. But I never forget, as I prepare for our convention, that we are gathered together in God's name and that we are pursuing God's mission. People often ask me about my vision of the diocese, and I've come to realize that I don't usually respond to them in institutional terms. So you've heard me say that as Christians, we need to lead with love, and I believe that. You've heard me say also that we need to go deep in our belief in God and our theological way of being, and we have to do that. But we also need to go deep with our neighbor. And so I believe that's really important too. So we go this way, deep with God and deep with our neighbor. And you've also heard me say we need to do things that give us life. There's a saying that says, does it give you life? And I believe our faith should give us life. I absolutely believe that too. And so you may have also heard me say how impressed I am by the way our diocese is embracing people whose experience of church has really not been that great. People who have been spurned elsewhere in the church experience have really found a home in the Diocese of Chicago. And so every Sunday when I go on visitations, people say to me, Bishop, I'm here because I've been embraced wholeheartedly by this community. Whereas when I was somewhere else at so-and-so church, they kicked me out. And so I know it's a superpower that we hold. We hold this special way of embracing the people of God, and that distinguishes us. So each one of us has an opportunity to act on the values at the heart of our Christian faith every day. We all know how the prophet Micah put it. He said, do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with our God. I believe that the people of our diocese make a good faith effort to do just that every single day. But I want to talk today about what is guiding us as congregations and as a diocese. And we can truly draw from these simple statements at the core of our faith. And this is where we can't help but to speak in institutional terms. So as you know, I spend a lot of time in the car, a whole lot of time in the car all over our diocese. And our diocese is called the Diocese of Chicago, but that's a misnomer. Let me tell you that we are also the Diocese of Hinsdale, and the Diocese of Galesburg, and the Diocese of Flossmoor, and the Diocese of the Quad Cities. And when I move around the diocese, one thing that I'm struck by is the courage of so many of our congregations. Indeed, if you read your Bible, and I know that you read your Bible, you know that God is always encouraging us to be of good courage. Be not afraid. Grace Church in Freeport wasn't afraid when they opened up their unused youth wing to Hope Wins, a small organization devoted to helping people who had special needs, children who had special needs. and One in Christ Church in Prospect Heights was not afraid when they embarked on their work on gender justice and domestic violence in the Asian American community. And the people of St. Anne's in Woodstock, St. Mary's in Crystal Lake, and St. Paul's in McHenry were not afraid on the day they voted to consolidate into one single parish. And later today, we will have the honor of voting to recognize that new parish, Trinity Episcopal Church in McHenry County. And our Eco Justice Fellows, Lori Petrie and Ellie Simpson, weren't afraid to train for leadership roles through the Episcopal Church Fellowship Program. Our new Eco Justice group is bringing a resolution later on today for us to vote on. In each of these instances, we can easily see people leading with love. But sometimes the evidence of love and a deep commitment to our faith is subtle and harder to detect. And sometimes it's even bureaucratic. But next year, I will be establishing 3 new committees to enhance our commitment to people who deserve more of our love and our compassion. One committee will focus on children and youth ministry, and we talked about that not too long ago. Another will concentrate on multicultural ministry. And the third will be a disability ministry group. These groups will advise me and our program and budget leadership on the concerns of people across our diocese whose concerns may not have received the attention that they deserve and whose gifts are not being called forth in ways that would benefit us all. And so if we're going to move forward in the future God wants for us, we're going to have to do so collaboratively, together. As you heard our Finance Committee say a little earlier, we have money in next year's budget for a strategic planning process. Now, I'm aware that there aren't any online surveys in the Bible. Yes, I know that. And I know that Jesus didn't convene any focus groups, but I also know that in our own Collect for Purity, when we talk about the one to whom all hearts are open, all desires known, and from whom no secrets are hid. We aren't talking about me, people. It's not me. And we aren't talking about our wonderful diocesan staff or clergy or any of the lay volunteers who minister to our diocesan community. Nope. When we talk about what we want in this diocese, we can't read people's minds. We have to ask people directly. And so we will talk with you, and we want to know what's on your minds. There's no way for us to understand what God is calling us to do without having a sense of what God is calling you in particular, to do, either individually or as a member of your congregation. And so we're going to have these strategic planning meetings, and we'll go through the strategic planning process. And I won't get into the dates or the timelines of that process today, but I do want you to know what some of my priorities are so that we can consider all these priorities together. First, I think it's essential that we build and sustain healthy congregations that can participate joyfully and faithfully in God's mission. Also, I think it's essential that we expand our commitment to repairing the breach created by racism by fostering faithful outreach and advocacy, enhancing our global mission, and being faithful stewards of God's creation. I also think it's essential we support lay and clergy leaders in deepening their faith and strengthening our relationships. And of course, I think it's critical that we build a sustainable future for ministry in our Diocese of Chicago. Sometimes people say that the devil is in the details, and I don't necessarily agree with that because we have an incarnational faith. So we know that God is really in the details. And I hope you will participate in studying those details and helping us to chart our future together. You've also heard that the Finance Committee will have not included income from the sale of 65 East Huron to St. James Cathedral in our 2025 budget. I want to make it clear that this doesn't indicate any reluctance on the part of the diocese or the cathedral about proceeding with the sale. To use a couple of acronyms I've been hearing a whole lot about these days, we have a LOA, letter of agreement, and we are working on a PSA, which is a purchase and sale agreement for those of you who are like me who don't really speak real estate. Negotiations are careful business, people, and ongoing. God is in those details, however, and we are proceeding in good faith. So one thing I can tell you is that it is our aim at this point to keep the bishop's office and the diocesan staff at 65 East Huron. But the other thing I need you to hear is that the sale of 65 East Huron is not a one-step solution to ensuring our financial future. Indeed, the diocesan financial problems have been mounting, you heard Pat say, for many, many years. We cannot solve them with a single stroke. We have to work hard to do that strategic planning process that I believe will help us. We need to define our priorities as a people of God. We need to put our gifts in the service of our goals with greater focus. As you might imagine, putting together a bishop's address is an excellent opportunity for reflection, both on our challenges and on the progress that we have made. For me, it is also an opportunity to reflect on how much I rely personally and corporately on your prayers and how grateful I am for your support. Indeed, some of you might remember at Anne Jolly's consecration when she became Bishop of Ohio. Remember that, some of you? Michael Curry, who was the presiding bishop at the time, said something that has never escaped me. He said that if you're sick or in trouble, it's the Diocese of Chicago that you want praying for you. He said that he got out there, and I know that's true. He was right. And I've experienced your prayers. And we all together are entering a season when many of our siblings in faith will need our support and our prayers. So this coming Christmas Eve, I'll be going to celebrate the Vigil of the Nativity with the people of Iglesia Cristo Rey in Chicago. Several of our Spanish-speaking communities are flourishing despite a lack of resources or even having more part-time clergy leadership. And I'm grateful to God for this growth. But Diocese of Chicago, we cannot let them walk unaccompanied into what may be a very difficult season ahead for refugees, immigrants, Latinos, and Latinas who have long been upstanding members of our communities. I think everyone knows that we are in for some uncertain times as a country and as a church, and we have our own issues to deal with here in this diocese. Sometimes events can seem beyond our control. That's one of the reasons I speak so often and so passionately of the small things that we can do in our personal lives and in our communities to lead with love and to live out our own faith. I want you to know that whatever uncertainties we may face as a nation or as a faith community in the coming year, the people of the Diocese of Chicago can count on three things. The first is that we will face into these uncertainties squarely and with courage. The second thing that we know is that we will do this together, listening to everyone, every voice that wants to be heard. And finally, third, we will do this work with God, and God will always, always, always be with us. And so we're gathered today on the cusp of Advent, the Advent season, which is a season of preparation. The season when we spend time with John the Baptist, y'all remember him. But also we hear from the prophet Isaiah. And my hope is that we will walk into this holy time of Advent with John's courage and Isaiah's confidence in God's promise and enduring commitment to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with our God. So in this way, we will show the world what it means to truly, truly lead with love. Amen. Okay, then now, friends, we'll move on to our lections right now. And so let's move on to the first ballot. So maybe you've noticed already that for bishop and trustees in the lay order, we have openings for 3 lay people for 3-year terms and 2 8 people for unexpired 2-year terms. There are 4 candidates that we'll be voting on. I call on our parliamentarian, Michael Peregrine, to discuss this issue.
Thank you, Bishop. In terms of the bishop and trustees election, per Canon 35, if a vacancy exists on bishop and trustees, the body may fill that vacancy until the next diocesan convention. So if this convention only fills 4 of the 5 lay seats, bishop and trustees would have the authority to appoint another layperson to fill the other open seat until next year's annual convention. So that will happen automatically per our canons.
Thank you, Michael. And so now I call on Stacey Jackson to facilitate our vote.
Thank you, Bishop. For bishop and trustees in the clergy order, there is 1 candidate, Kevin Goodman. Vote for 1 candidate in the clergy order. The poll will now open. Please click submit when done and wait until we announce the next ballot. We will give it about another 10 seconds. That vote is now closed. Bishop and trustees in the lay order. The candidates are Lon Myers, Bill Pearson, Fred Reed, Nicole Spencer. Vote for 3 candidates in the lay order. The polls are now open. Please click submit when done and wait until we announce the next ballot. There has been a little issue with people needing to reload the poll, so we're going to give this one a little additional time to ensure everyone has the proper time to cast their votes. If you are unable to see the vote after the refresh, please try re-logging in and see if that works. And we'll leave this open for a few extra minutes to ensure everyone has the proper time to cast your vote. There's been a recommendation that it's working better on your phone. So if that works better, please give that a try. We'll give it just another minute. This vote is now closed. A nominee must receive a majority vote on this ballot to be elected. If a nominee does not receive a majority on this ballot, a second ballot will be taken where the candidates are elected based on plurality and ranked according to number of votes cast. Standing committee in the clergy order. The candidates are Jaime Ursino, Joanne Legman, and Court Williams. Vote for 2 candidates in the clergy order. The polls are now open. Please click submit when done and wait until we announce the next ballot. This vote is now closed. We will vote for one candidate for Cathedral Chapter. The candidate is Eileen Shanley Roberts. The polls are open. Please click Submit when done. This vote is now closed. For Standing Committee in the lay order, there is one candidate, Wes Kimes. Vote for one candidate in the lay order. The poll is now open. Please click Submit when done. This vote is now closed. We will be back a little later with the results. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Appreciate it. So before we move on to the resolutions, a call on our parliamentarian, Michael Berrigan, for remarks on the legislative process and a review of guidelines for time limits on discussions and debate on the canonical legislation and the resolutions. Michael, I'd appreciate your chiming in.
Thank you very much, Bishop. And we're at the point in the convention when I have the distinct opportunity to confuse myself as well as everyone participating in the convention with our rules of order. Generally speaking, and for those of you who are familiar with Robert's Rules of Order, we generally follow a 15-minute time frame that's used to limit the total debate on a single motion, allowing multiple members to speak within that time frame. But for those of you who are keeping score at home and have a copy of your canons with you, I would refer you to page 60, the Rules of Order of the Convention, point 8. And I will read from it slowly because it's difficult to paraphrase this given its detail. And this is in the general section of how the order, questions of order proceeds at this point in the convention. Point 8 states as follows. After first stating his or her name and congregational or other affiliation, a member, which is a defined term, addressing the convention, shall direct all remarks to the president and confine such remarks to the question on the floor. No member shall speak more than twice on the same pending matter without leave of the president, nor, in the absence of such leave, for more than 3 minutes at a time. Once debate on any matter has taken 15 minutes, the president may end the debate or specify a time period for limited further debate, subject to the convention's power to extend or limit the time frame upon motion supported by a 2/3 majority. Bishop?
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. That is good news to abide by if we can follow it. And so we'll do our best and go forward. So let's begin with our first resolution, which is A 187, Amendment of Canon 35, the Bishop and Trustees. Is there someone who is prepared to move Resolution A 187?
Bishop Bill Pearson has a hand raised to make the motion.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop. I'm Bill Pearson. I worship at St. Christopher's in Oak Park. I'm the second vice president of the Bishop and Trustees of the Protestant Church in the Diocese of Chicago, a corporation, usually referred to as B&T. I move the adoption of Resolution A 187.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. And is there a second?
Bishop Courtney Reed has raised a hand.
Thank you, Courtney. I appreciate that second. It's been moved and seconded. So Bill, would you like to speak to this motion?
Thank you, Bishop. Briefly, I will. B&T is an Illinois not-for-profit corporation that owns real estate for the diocese, including buildings used by missions and campus ministries, closed properties, St. James Cathedral and St. James Commons. From time to time, B&T has to sell real estate. The procedures for approving a sale and conveying a property are specified both in B&T's bylaws and also in Canon 35. The bylaws were recently amended to utilize current real estate transaction practices. Now, Resolution A 187 will merely make Canon 35 consistent with the B&T bylaws as amended. The changes to the canon are described in the explanation and shown by the comparison therein. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate that explanation. Is there any discussion on our current resolution A 187?
Bishop Courtney Reed's hand is raised.
Thank you, Courtney.
That was a mistake, Bishop. I did not unraise my hand.
Oh, that's okay, Courtney. We love to hear your voice.
Thank you.
So, any other discussion we have? So hearing none, the matter before us is Resolution A 187, Amendment of Canon 35, the Bishop and Trustees. We, if it's okay, Stacy, we will vote using VPoll. Vote yes to approve the resolution, vote no to reject the resolution.
The vote is open. Wait just another minute. The vote is now closed. Sophie, can you please display the results?
So it seems that the vote passes. Awesome. So let's then move on to our next resolution for consideration, which is B 187, consolidation of St. Paul's, McHenry, St. Mary's, Crystal Lake, and St. Anne's, Woodstock, the one I made reference to earlier in the address. Is someone here who wishes to move the resolution B 187?
Bishop Dick Hatton has raised a hand to make the motion.
Awesome. Dick, would you like to move
Thank you,
the
Bishop.
resolution?
Yes, thank you. My name is Dick Hatton of St. Anne's Episcopal Church in Woodstock, and I move Resolution B 187.
Thank you, Dick. And is there a second to that motion?
Bishop Mike Higgins has raised a hand to second the motion.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, and so now, Dick, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would, Bishop. Thank you. This resolution to consolidate the 3 Episcopal parishes in McHenry County is the product of 3 years of prayer, discussion, and discernment. The path has required patience and careful listening from the people of all 3 parishes. In this process, we've discovered and engaged leaders from our respective parishes. I'm sorry, my dog interrupted me. In this process, we've discovered and engaged leaders from our respective parishes who had been sitting on the sidelines, waiting to be called. We've dealt with the issue of declining clergy resources by raising up lay ministers to lead morning prayer and lay preachers to find their voices and preach the good news. We've discovered the beautiful sound of a combined choir from St. Anne's and St. Mary's to enhance our combined worship. But what surprised us was that we liked one another. Meeting together over dinners to celebrate holidays and holy days, we began to see our combined parish as us and not we and them. We've begun new ministries together as one parish with 2 sites. We run a food pantry that feeds 250 families. We provide shelter for the immigrant, and we welcome all of God's people to our communion table. Therefore, I ask you to approve this resolution to bring a new source of energy to the people of McHenry County in the creation of Trinity Episcopal Church of McHenry County. And Bishop, I would like to offer the balance of my time to Mike Higgins from St. Mary's Church.
Thank you. And I'll allow Mike Higgins to speak in the remainder of your time. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Bishop. I would just like to say that as with the Diocese of Chicago, I know our 3 churches all were dealing with a history of financial worry and doubt. And we had to make some hard choices, as did the diocese. And initially, those choices met some resistance. People don't like change. And they went from being hesitant to eventually moving to a loving collaboration between those three churches. And we too would like to wish you to vote yes for this resolution to create Trinity Episcopal Parish of McHenry County.
So thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. And so let's move forward. Is there any discussion?
Bishop Millicent Wishaw has a hand raised.
All right. Why don't we move forward then with Millicent?
That hand has been lowered and the name gone. It looks like Marvin Hill has a hand raised.
Okay, Marvin?
That may have been a mistake. His hand is now, well, actually, maybe Marvin is still there.
Marvin, do you want to speak?
Bishop, the next name in line is Jeffrey Zabor.
All right then, how about Jeff, you said?
Yes, good morning, and thank you. Jeff Zabor, vestry from St. Paul's Episcopal Church in McHenry.
Thank you.
St. Paul has always been coined as the little church that could, and in the face of change, we have banded together through the sale of our building and now inevitably to become Trinity Episcopal with our sister churches, St. Anne's and St. Mary's, respectively. It has been an uplifting, long and uphill journey to this point. Navigating change isn't easy for any of us. However, it's been an eye-opening experience to learn and find a way to become and remain church in our changing society. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You all have shown great courage, and I appreciate it. So I'm happy we can move forward with this. Let's move forward then with a VPoll. Vote yes to approve the resolution. Vote no to reject the resolution.
Jeffrey Zabor spoke early, so when you have the three of them speak, Jeff has already.
The vote is now closed. Sophie, could you please display the results?
So it appears that we have 100% approval. B187, the resolution passes. So I'd like to invite two leaders from Trinity McHenry County to briefly address the convention on this awesome, joy-filled, happy occasion. And so I invite Andrew Wald from St. Mary's and Holly Williams of St. Anne's to raise their hands so you all can be unmuted and in turn address our convention.
Hi, yeah, this is Andrew Wild. I'm the warden for St. Mary's Episcopal Church, and really just want to say to the group here how excited we are across our three congregations and 3 towns, in fact, to be coming together as Trinity Parish. We've had a tremendous amount of work done by the vestry, by the finance committee, and by the parishioners themselves across all 3 parishes to make this come together. You know, I really think that the future looks very bright for our new parish, and in fact, the future starts here. So, thank you very much.
We're thrilled. We're thrilled. Holly, do you want to speak as well?
Yes, thank you, Bishop. I'm Holly Williams, the senior warden at St. Anne's, and thank you to the Assembly for approving our unified parish. It's so exciting. Also, thank you to Father Scott Zaucha for his vision and communicating that, you know, one priest for 2 churches with 2 different operating systems and 2 budgets and 2 vestries isn't a manageable to do in the long run, and for communicating a clear and energizing vision of how the combined energy, enthusiasm, and helping hands of an entire parish can get so much more accomplished with God's help. I'd like to also thank the congregation for being practical problem solvers and who can act fearlessly. And Andrea Meissen, thank you for pointing us in the right direction multiple times and being present in our celebrations. Also, thank you to our chancellors, Michael and Todd, who tackled all things legal. Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to do an expression of gratitude for your courageous work and the ongoing work that has borne fruit to date and will bear more fruit in the future. So thank you all. It's really exciting. Thank you. All right then. So now let's move forward, and we are ready to consider adoption of Resolution C-187, minimum priest compensation. And so I call on, therefore, Keith Campert, who will make a motion for its adoption. Keith?
Thank you, Bishop. This is Keith Camper, Treasurer, Diocesan Treasurer. I move adoption of Resolution C-187.
Thank you. And is there a second to this resolution?
Bishop Amity Karuba has a hand raised for the second.
Thank you, Amity, for the second. Amity, do you want to make it verbally so we can hear your beautiful voice in congregation?
Is Amity Karuba, priest at Grace Chicago, and I second this motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Amity. And so why don't we go back to Keith? Would you like to speak to this motion?
I believe Brad Lindblom is going to address this resolution.
All right, and I'll allow his speaking to it. Brad, are you there?
I am Brad Lindboom, Church of the Holy Nativity, Clarendon Hills, and member of Diocesan Council. C-187 before you today is a slight change in grammar or language this year after the recommendations of both Diocesan Council and others to change from minimum clergy compensation to minimum priest compensation due to the standard nature of priests being the order that is compensated in this diocese. As such, you will see that we are recommending a 2% increase based on prevailing rates across the diocese, not just in the Chicago index, but the index across the whole area. And everything else is in line with what we traditionally have put in on the past for this. And we simply draw your attention to commensurate compensation based on hours of week, based on the full-time rates. I ask for your consideration and approval of this resolution.
Thank you, Brad. Thanks very much. Is there any discussion we have today? On C 187 minimum priest compensation?
Bishop Christopher Griffin has a hand raised.
Thank you, Chris. Chris, did you want to speak to this?
That was an accident. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. It's good to hear your voice, Chris.
Thank you, Bishop.
Anyone else? Anyone else?
Bishop, there are no hands raised at this time.
All right then, so we'll move with haste. So the matter before our convention is Resolution C 187, minimum priest compensation. We will vote using VPoll. Vote yes to approve the resolution, vote no to reject the resolution.
This vote is now closed. Sophie, could you please display the results?
So it appears that the motion passes on C 187. I appreciate your voting in this matter, and so we can move forward. So we have scheduled a lunch break, but we're running ahead of schedule. So if we could take a 5-minute stretch break right now and just so we'll go forward with having lunch. Oh, no lunch. Let's take a 10-minute actually stretch break, and we'll go in and not take lunch yet because it seems that we can move forward. So let's do that 10-minute stretch break and come back at 11:35. 11:35, return, and we'll move forward. Thank you all so much.
You have not heard back from the return.
So welcome back. I'll call you back from our break, and I think we'll move now to our results of the first ballot. So may I call then on Stacy Jackson to give us the results of the first ballot. Stacy, are you there?
Yes. Yes, thank you,
Awesome.
Bishop. Bishop and trustee clergy election results. Kevin Goodman. Bishop and trustee in the lay order. Because everyone received over 50% or majority, there will need to be a second ballot. And all candidates will appear on the second ballot. For standing committee in the clergy order, again, because everyone received 50%, we will be re-voting again. And all candidates will appear on the second ballot. And in the standing committee for lay nominees, Wes Kynes. Cathedral chapter is Eileen Shanley Roberts. So for the second ballot, we will be opening the bishop and trustees. And the lay nominees are Lon Myers, Bill Pearson, Fred Reed, and Nicole Spencer. We will be voting for 3 candidates. The top 3 will serve 3-year terms, and the 4th will serve a 2-year term. And we will go ahead and open this vote. These results will be determined by plurality. Give it just a couple more seconds. This, folks, is now closed. The next vote is Standing Committee Clergy Order. The nominees are Jaime Brasino, Joanne Lakeman, and Court Williams. Vote for 2 candidates. The vote is now open. The vote is now closed. And we'll be back a little later with the results from these ballots.
Thank you so much, Stacy. And so, while those votes that Stacy referred to are being tallied, let's move then back to resolutions and our resolution debate. Michael, would you please remind us of the rules of order before we launch into a resolution discussions?
Thank you, Bishop. Yes, again, we are working on a 15-minute time frame that we use to limit the total debate on a single motion with 3-minute intervals for individual speakers. And I think the various speakers in the prior resolutions followed that practice completely. So we would appreciate, again, that's point 8 on page 60 of our diocesan canons.
It's wonderful. Thank you, Michael. And so we'll move now then to Resolution D 187 on being socially responsible investors in Palestine and Israel. And so as we're doing that, do we have anyone whose hand is raised to make the motion?
Bishop Jenny Hewlin has a hand raised.
Thank you.
Bishop, I am the Reverend Jenny Hewlin. I am rector at St. Simon's in Arlington Heights, and I move the adoption of Resolution D 187.
Thank you, Jenny. Good to hear your voice. And so is there a second to D 187? We have a hand raised for a second.
Yes, Scott Elliott.
Scott, would you go ahead then?
I raised my hand to second this motion.
And say your name
is-
and your congregation, Scott.
I'm sorry, this is Deacon Scott Elliott from Atonement in Chicago.
Thank you, Scott. All right. And so let me go back to Jenny then. Would you like to speak to the motion, Jenny?
Yes, I would, Bishop. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
This resolution directs our diocesan foundation to add to our existing investment screens those corporations that consistently, knowingly, and directly enable human rights violations in Palestine and the West Bank. It is the practical application of decisions we have already made together. An investment screen is a filter that investors use to avoid or minimize financial investment in a stock or bond with which they don't wish to participate and from which they do not wish to profit. At its foundation, this resolution is a statement about who we are going to be. The conversation is no longer about whether or not the actions of the Israeli government are intolerable. We declared ourselves firmly on that question at our diocesan convention in 2021 with the passage of Resolution F-184. The conversation is also no longer broadly a theological one. We have committed ourselves to strive for justice and peace among all people and to respect the dignity of every human being. That vow calls us to act on ideals and aspirations in ways that are visible and tangible. This resolution is most fundamentally about our identity. Who are we, and how does this particular expression of the body of Christ live out what we say we believe? We have a partial answer to that question from the 2018 General Convention. There, we directed the appropriate Episcopal Church Committee to screen our investments in Israel and Palestine based on specific human rights criteria, which we have done, selling our shares in 3 corporations found to be complicit in the illegal occupation of Palestinian territories at the West Bank. What this resolution before us asks us to do at the diocesan level, we have already done on the wider church level. This resolution directs us to find and remove those circumstances in which our investments turn a profit from sales that contribute to the violence against non-Jews in Palestine. Doing that may not change anything for those who suffer. However, discontinuing our financial investment in corporations engaged in those violations means we are discontinuing our engagement in those violations. None of the needed and noble work done with our investment income in this diocese should be funded by the sufferings of an oppressed and persecuted people. With this resolution, we look deeply into the mirror, and as we walk away from it, remember what we saw, lest we deceive ourselves and are found to be merely hearers of the word and not doers. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Awesome, thank you. And so now, is there any discussion?
Bishop Claire Nichol has a hand raised. Oh, Cleo Nichol, sorry.
So do we have a hand raised? I'm sorry, I got lost.
I don't believe Cleo Nichol's hand is raised anymore. Ann Smith.
All right, and so we're getting feedback. Krista, would you clarify who we have going forward right now, or Michael?
Yeah, it looks like Cleo Nichol's hand went down, and next up would be Ann Smith.
So Ann, would you like to discuss this resolution?
Yes, this is Ann Smith from
Hi.
Annunciation, Gurnee. I respectfully request to cede my time to Rebecca Levin.
All right then. So Rebecca Levin, then I will allow you to cede your time to her.
Thank you, Bishop.
Good morning. My name is Rebecca Levin, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak in favor of Resolution D-187 on being socially responsible investors in Palestine and Israel. I am a Jew who has been working for almost 40 years for a just peace in Palestine, Israel. I cannot speak for all Jews, nor can anyone else, though many presume to do so. But I am hoping that this brief testimony may support your work for justice and love in Palestine, Israel. My family survived the pogroms of Eastern Europe, and I learned that our commitment to never again meant never again for anyone. On October 7th, I landed in Palestine, Israel to do peace work in the West Bank's northern Jordan Valley with Palestinian shepherds who are being pushed out of their villages by Israeli settlers. Israeli settlers have established a large number of outposts near Palestinian villages where they violently steal the shepherds' land and animals and attack the shepherding communities, killing and maiming young and old alike. Over the 5 weeks that I lived and worked there, I observed violent attacks not only by the settlers, but by the Israeli army as well. Many of you are aware that the Israeli army is deployed around the settlements to protect their Jewish residents. But the army did not just protect the Jewish settlers. The army was an active participant in using horrendous violence and the threat of violence to expel the Palestinian villagers. I witnessed but a small slice of what we have all seen on our screens and read in our news feeds. The violence and genocide has only exacerbated in the months since I've returned. We can use the power of our voices and the power of our actions to say no to these systematic violations of human rights. You, as a religious community, have already taken important steps to speak truth to power and to ensure that your investments mirror your ethical and moral stances with the investment screen that you approved in 2018. American Friends Service Committee has done the hard work of identifying other businesses that are violating the Episcopal Church's commitment to reject these companies that use their economic power to undermine human rights and international law. The apartheid and genocide that we are all witnessing are being bought and funded with our tax dollars and with our investments. Please use your voice as a spiritual community committed to justice and love to say no more to providing the financial support to companies that violate our commitment to human rights and international law, and help stop the slaughter and destruction of our Palestinian brethren and their communities. Thank you very much.
We're at the 3 minute.
Thank you, Rebecca. And so now, do we have any other discussion?
Bishop Ann Logue had her hand raised.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Anne. Do you want to speak to this?
This is Annie Logue. I am here with All Saints Chicago. I am also a trustee on the Common Fund of the Diocesan Foundation. The Common Fund portfolio has had no direct stock investment for more than 20 years. Rather, all such investment is indirect via mutual funds and exchange-traded funds. These hold a total of 3,656 stocks. This resolution identifies 17 of those stocks for divestment. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we okay then in terms of the 15-minute maximum?
Yes, we are still okay with that timeline.
Awesome. So any more discussion? Any hands raised?
Bishop Kenji Kuramitsu has a hand raised.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Kenji, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, thank you. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Kenji. Go for
Kenji
it.
Kuramitsu, St. Paul and the Redeemer. I'm also Associate Dean at Rockefeller Chapel at the University of Chicago. And Bishop Clark, I want to tell you about the time that my father and I visited the West Bank together in 2018. I was studying cooking there, and at the end of my trip that summer, my dad flew out to see some of the Christian holy sites that I'd heard about from him and my mother since I was a child. And we saw some amazing things there, but one memory that I will never forget was our first morning in Bethlehem when my dad threw open the curtains of our hotel and saw the massive land annexation barrier, this wall that Israel had built for security purposes, dividing village from village. And my dad's breath caught in his chest, and he looked at me and he said three words that I'll never forget. He said, just like camp. Just like camp. So his mind was reeling back decades. Growing up, I associated camp with things like Boy Scouts, but for my father and for Japanese Americans of his generation, camp was what was associated with barbed wire, losing their homes, dust storms in the deserts, armed guards, checkpoints. Camp for my grandparents' generation was all of those things. And my father saw a glimpse of the camp fence in the apartheid wall that morning in Bethlehem. It reminded me, looking back, of Bonhoeffer's idea that security is the opposite of peace. I grew up in a post 9/11 world largely in which presidents were doing all sorts of things in the name of security that hurt a lot of people. President Roosevelt, an Episcopalian, was never challenged by our denomination, his church, for failing to love neighbor by ordering the mass incarceration of our community. People said things like, it's complicated, there's a war going on, we don't want to be seen as taking sides, it's for security. The only religious organization in the US that spoke out against what was happening to our families was the American Friends Service Committee, the AFSC, who drafted this investment screen. In your address today, Bishop Clark, you urged us to repair the breach caused by racism. And just as our church did in the 1940s, we have an opportunity today to speak for peace by voting yes on this resolution, by voting to stand up for those whose backs are up against the wall, in Howard Thurman's memorable phrasing. Where we invest our treasures, we invest our hearts. I again encourage my colleagues to vote yes to pass this investment screen. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. I urge us to trust in the witness of the Sanctuary Task Force, the Peace with Justice Committee, the Anti-Racism Committee, and those in every cross-section of our church who support this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking to it. And so I'll just check in. Are we good for another person, or do we need to turn our attention?
Bishop, we have time, and Sandra Castillo is next in the queue.
Awesome. Thank you. Good to hear from you, Canon Castillo. Has Sandra been unmuted?
Thank you, Bishop. Thanks for the
Yeah.
opportunity to speak on behalf of D187. Sandra Castillo, assisting priest at Santa Teresa de Avila in Chicago, canon of Migration Ministries and chair of the Sanctuary Task Force. In 2019, when our convention became a sanctuary diocese, part of our resolution was to work alongside our friends, families, and neighbors to ensure the dignity and human rights of all people. This is a commitment that our diocese has made. And certainly what is happening in the Mideast, and the reason for this proposed resolution, is in fact to implement our sanctuary diocesan resolution. In addition, as my predecessor in speaking just said, this resolution requires the adoption of the investment screen that has been proposed and used by the American Friends Service Committee. And it requires that a corporation that has more than 10% business invested in the warfare that is occurring currently, that we disinvest from that corporation, 10%. And so when we consider our resolution, making ourselves a sanctuary diocese, which is based upon the teachings of Jesus, based upon scripture, and based upon our baptismal covenant, it is very reasonable to make this step towards relieving the situation in which our friends and neighbors and relatives of many of our immigrant friends are realizing and experienced in the Mideast. And I ask that this convention vote in favor of D187.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that.
Bishop, we are now out of time. We've reached the 15-minute limit for this resolution.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that. We've already exhausted time. So if we can move forward, we have the resolution D 187 before us, and we go forward with a vote then on via VPoll. Vote yes to approve the resolution, no to reject the resolution.
The vote is now closed. Sophie, if you could please display the results.
Okay, the resolution passes. Thank you all. All right then. So I think we might be able to get in another resolution. And so why don't we move now to resolution E 187, transition of the Diocese of Chicago Sanctuary Task Force to Sanctuary Committee. Is there someone here who would like to move resolution E 187?
Bishop Cassidy Conley has a hand raised.
Thank you, Cassidy.
Thank you, Bishop Paula. We're getting a little feedback here, sorry.
Cassidy, are you?
Thank you, Bishop. This is
Okay.
Cassidy Connolly from Grace Episcopal Church of Chicago.
Yes.
I move for the discussion and adoption of Resolution E-187.
Thank you, Cassidy. Is there a second?
Bishop Gary Cox had a hand raised.
Thank you, Gary.
Gary Cox, Vicar of Santa Teresa de Avila in Chicago. Bishop, I second E-187.
Thank you for that second, Gary. And so, Cassidy, would you like to speak to the motion? maybe I should say, who would like to speak to the motion E-187?
Bishop, I believe Sandra Castillo is prepared to do so.
Awesome. Sandra Cannon, we'll hear from you again then. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Bishop. 5 years ago, our diocesan convention resolved that the Diocese of Chicago would become a sanctuary diocese. Since then, the Sanctuary Task Force, the mechanism by which the resolution would be implemented, has worked with our churches and institutions by providing educational resources, including webinars, articles, the Uncaged Art exhibit, and consultations, has formed partnerships with various networks to advocate for immigrants and to identify and provide housing and rent support for families of asylum seekers. It has provided hands-on assistance to churches that provide housing and other ministries to asylum seekers. We've provided referrals to churches and families and individuals to legal service organizations, assisted asylum seekers with asylum and work permit applications. And we should be very proud of those congregations and Episcopal charities for stepping forward to engage in this ministry. Our congregations that are composed primarily of immigrants continue to provide our brothers and sisters with pastoral care, spiritual formation, the sacraments, and liturgies in the various cultures and languages and traditions of each congregation. And these diverse cultures, languages, and traditions enrich our diocese and enrich our society. It has become quite clear, however, that to continue the work of implementing our sanctuary resolution, especially in the environment in which we now find ourselves, a task force is not sustainable. In addition to our congregation's present ministries, we must now respond to the needs of our undocumented brothers and sisters. And there are many, an estimated 500,000 of our neighbors, who are again at risk of future immigration raids, imprisonment, and mass deportations. To move forward effectively as a sanctuary diocese now requires that the task force be transitioned into a diocesan sanctuary committee. As such, the committee will be included in the diocesan budget. The allocation will be supplemented by fundraising, including both cash and in-kind donations of our congregation's members and our community partners. I therefore respectfully request that the 187th Convention pass Resolution E-187. Thank you.
Thank you, Cannon. Is there any discussion on E-187?
Bishop, I do not see any hands raised.
Awesome. Seeing none, then, this matter before the convention is Resolution E-187, transition of the Diocese of Chicago Sanctuary Task Force to Sanctuary Committee. We will vote using VPoll. Vote yes to approve the resolution, vote no to reject the resolution of E-187.
We'll give this one just a few extra seconds because some people are having to re-log in to cast their votes. The vote is now closed. Sophie, could you please display the results?
All right, thank you. It would appear that Resolution E-187 passes. Thank you so much. Let me just say as a reminder, a convention offering this year will go to the Diocese of Chicago's Sanctuary Committee now. We just voted on that. The slide gives information on ways to make a donation, and thank you in advance for your generosity. Thank you. All right then, and so we'll go forward then, and let's go forward with Resolution F-187, adopting the net zero by 2030 creation care goal for the Diocese of Chicago and creating resources to encourage and enable parishes to achieve net zero. Let's go forward with that now. And so is there someone here prepared to move Resolution F-187?
Bishop Richard Benson has a hand raised to move the motion.
Awesome. Richard, are you being unmuted and would you like to make the motion?
Thank you, Bishop. I would. I'm
Thank
Richard
you.
Benson, the Green Team lead at the Church of the Atonement in Edgewater in Chicago. I'm a member of the EcoDio Chicago Working Group led by our Episcopal Climate Fellow and Delegate Ellie Simpson. And it is my honor on behalf of EcoDio Chicago to move Resolution F-187 for your consideration and approval.
Thank you so much. And is there a second?
Bishop John Christ has a hand raised to second.
Thank you. John, do you want to speak to that second?
Yes.
Thank you, John.
I'm speaking in favor of 187. Earlier, we passed a resolution calling for disinvestment in certain corporations. That resolution put our investments in alignment with our stated values. This resolution on net zero will put our buildings and other diocesan properties in alignment with our values to value and work for a more just, a more verdant creation, a creation that is not being overburdened by excessive use of fossil fuels and other such activities.
All right then. So Richard, let me just clarify. So are you seconding and speaking to the motion?
Yes.
Thank you. I thought so. I just wanted to clarify. And so is there any discussion that we want to have on this F-187?
Yes, Bishop, it's Richard Benson. I'm willing to speak in favor of the resolution.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Bishop and delegates, and thank you for holding on through 6 long resolution discussions and before lunch. So I'll try to keep it moderately brief. Just want to explain that this resolution does essentially 3 things. It sets the goal for our diocese and encourages parishes to try to become net zero in their greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. That's in line with our national church goals. Secondly, it gives structure and mission to our Eco-Dio Chicago group for next year. And thirdly, provides resources to compile a professional quality, reliable guide for all our parishes to begin their net zero journey. This resolution does not compel parishes to spend a single dime, but instead helps coordinate the effort to lead in love with organizing and providing resources to help us accomplish this worthy mission for more of a diocesan level. Care for creation is a priority of the national church and our own diocese. We are called to do what we can in our own context to stop contributing to the climate crisis where we can. In line with this, General Convention for the Global Church set a standard in 2022 for the whole denomination to endeavor to become net zero by 2030. But like many goals, they did not provide funding and guidance to achieve this. Thus, this resolution we discuss now seeks to address that goal and implement it in our local context as the church in Northern and Western Illinois. What this resolution wants to do is set the moral goal of reaching net zero and to make it simple for parish vestries and clergy leadership to move forward in the right direction. In Atonement's case, we're blessed that we have attorneys, architects, and our lay leadership with a supportive and optimistic clergy and vestry and an endowment to draw on. But not every parish has those resources, and many need help pushing through knowledge gaps in order to start working on their own journeys. In each of our parish success cases we mentioned in the explanation, parishes essentially figured it out on their own and recreated the wheel. We also acknowledge each parish is different, which is why we need a comprehensive professional guide on all the opportunities available across our diverse state. But the successes seen in other dioceses are due to diocesan coordination. And that's what this resolution intends to bring to life, gaining economies of scale in our own context and not recreating the wheel. And now, while we all acknowledge the theological importance of caring for creation, one item I want to briefly highlight from our successes so far is that when parishes succeed in this net zero journey, it actually helps them on their budget costs. For example, St. Michael's Barrington cut about 2/3 of their utility bills through a modest solar project they finished 5 years ago. And when Atonement's system will come online in May, God willing, we will generate more electricity than we use, and under the new credit system, remove 3/4 of our utility bills. And with all of the different federal, state, and utility subsidies, our capital cost will be paid for 1 year out of energizing. So in the end, doing the right thing will not cost us anything in the long run and will be a net positive budget impact every month going forward. And so we want to be able to take those successes and stop recreating the wheel and allow every parish, vestry, and clergy person to work in their own context. Finally, the timing is right for this resolution. 2030 will be here before we know it. And if we're serious about making our church net zero, we need to get on this sooner rather than later. Atonement's journey has been about 3 years in length, and because it's many steps and many processes. It's not just one simple project. And
Bishop,
that length of
the
time.
3-minute limit.
Okay. Well, then let me just close by thank you all for listening. I appreciate your patience and dedication, and I hope this resolution gives you joy and optimism for our future. We humbly ask for your vote.
Thank you, Richard. So I'm hearing then that we can continue in discussion. Is that right?
That is correct. And Sandy Siegel Miller is next in line to speak.
All right, thank you, Sandy. You have the floor.
Good morning, Sandy Siegel Miller, deacon at Church of the Holy Nativity in Clarendon Hills. And I raise my hand to second this motion. I certainly support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sandy. Is there another?
Elizabeth Simpson Falk is next in line.
Thank you, Elizabeth. You have the floor.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth or Ellie Simpson Falk. I am the delegate from Church of the Ascension Chicago and also the current lead for our new Eco-Dio Chicago working group. And I wanted to speak to the joy that this resolution has brought to that group, the collaboration of everyone in that group to bring this resolution to this convention. It really is giving us some great direction as a new working group in this diocese, and we hope that we are able through this to support all of the churches across the diocese. I also wanted to speak that our group currently has multiple different deaneries represented. We have involvement from several different churches across and in different parts of the diocese, but we definitely want more involvement. And that is one of the things that this resolution speaks to. We have people who are currently connected, myself as being an Eco-Justice Fellow through the Episcopal Creation Care from the church, and we have connections to groups like Faith in Place, and we hope to continue to deepen those connections and to use them to support all of our churches and the entire diocese in this work. As a vestry member myself, in a church that does not yet have a green team, I'm really excited about the possibility of having a guide that would make the work and stepping into this work easier, because it can feel very overwhelming. And I am just excited that there is a space for us to collaborate and to empower churches that haven't started this yet, and to continue to walk alongside churches that already have started this work and to uplift all of us in this journey together. And finally, I wanted to speak to the importance of creation care as someone who has family in other countries. And even in our own diocese, we see that global warming affects communities in other countries and poor communities in our own spaces the most. And so I think as a church, it is important for us to lead with love in this area and to be people who stand up and care and work for the good of our full community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Awesome. And thank you for all the work you're doing. I really appreciate it. Is there another who's speaking to this? Do we have time?
I believe we have time, Bishop, and Cassidy Conley is next in line.
Okay, thank you. Cassidy, why don't you go forward? You have the floor.
Thank you, Bishop. This is Cassidy Connolly. I'm a delegate from Grace Episcopal Church in Chicago, and I will start by aging myself. I am recently turned 28, so I am part of a generation who is beginning to face the reality that the can has been kicked down the road too many times. And it is my generation, especially as we consider the ramifications of having children and passing on stewardship of creation. What will that mean for my friends, for my neighbors, for my relatives, for my own babies? It's a very, very serious issue. And I speak certainly for myself, for many members of my community, and I'm certain for many members of my generation, when I say that commitment is wonderful, but words mean nothing without accountability. And so I will admit to being a touch skeptical when I first read the title of this resolution. I have seen too many commitments with no structures of accountability or guidance for community in place. And I'm very grateful to the people who have spoken on behalf of this resolution before me for better helping my understanding. I have much more confidence speaking before you now that this is a resolution that moves beyond nice thoughts and empty words, that this gives us space and guidance for accountability and for moving forward with a serious, tangible effort toward rescuing and safeguarding our communities and the creation that we have promised our God to protect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cassidy. I appreciate that. Okay, it sounded to me like our time was close. Is that true?
That is correct, Bishop.
All right then. So let's move forward then and take a vote. So we'll vote on this F-187 and we'll vote using VPoll. Vote yes to approve the resolution, no to reject it.
We'll give it a few more seconds as people are having to re-enter VPoll. The vote is now closed. Sophie, could you please display the results?
It would appear that resolution F-187 passes. Thank you all for your support and moving forward with this resolution. And so now I'm going to call, well, I'll take a point of personal privilege. And that is that we have received the sanctuary offering that we spoke about earlier after we had the sanctuary committee established after their transfer from task force to committee. And so I wanted to announce that the sanctuary offering is $7,630. So thank you so much for your generosity. I'm so excited by what has been raised today. You all should be very proud. We're very grateful for all your generosity. Thank you so much. So we don't have a whole lot of business to go. So let's turn quickly, and thank you for hanging in there with us. Let me call on Stacy Jackson our teller for the results of the second ballot.
Thank you. The results for the second ballot are as follows. For bishop and trustees, in the lay order, Nicole Spencer, Bill Pearson, and Lon Myers will serve the 3-year term, and Fred Reed has been elected to the 2-year term. The results are displayed on the screen. For the standing committee in the clergy order, Jaime Brasino and Joanne Legman have been elected. Congratulations to all of the winners.
Thank you. And thank you to all who ran too. It's important that we be involved with our diocese. Thank you so much to everyone. And congratulations to those who were elected. We're rolling up our sleeves. So thank you. Awesome. So we just now, and thank you, Stacy, for all you've done on these. Thank you. Now let's turn our attention to the Yasuaki Award. Each year, the Peace and Justice Committee of the Episcopal Diocese of Chicago gives an award to a peacemaker in honor of the Reverend Seichi Michael Yasutake. The Reverend Yasutake was an outspoken Chicago activist and Episcopal priest who fought for the civil rights of imprisoned protesters. He died in 2002. This year, Peace and Justice has selected the Reverend Gary Cox, who we heard from earlier, as the recipient of that Yasutake Award. Gary has been an advocate for justice for many years. He serves on the Anti-Racism Commission here, chairs the Congo Committee here, organizes teams for the Crop Hunger Walk, and serves on the Hispanic Affairs Committee and Sanctuary Committee. He's really busy, you all. He also does all this with incredible commitment, kindness, and grace, while serving as vicar of Santa Teresa de Avila Episcopal, and he's pastor of Calvary Lutheran Church of the ELCA, as well as being a college instructor. He's really, really busy. Father Gary mentored youth as part-time summer employees at Santa Teresa as part of the Crossroads to Work anti-violence program, and was willing to do so until there weren't enough youth in the program to fill their jobs. Gary is truly an amazing person who works quietly and yet tirelessly for justice. I want to congratulate you, Gary. Thank you for your commitment on this, and it's a well-deserved honor to have you recognized in this way. So this is my clapping, but thank you so much, Gary, and congratulations on being selected for the Yasutake Award. God bless you. All right then. So, we'll move forward with the courtesy resolutions. So let me call now on Lynn Bowers, our Secretary of Convention, to present courtesy resolutions.
The courtesy resolutions are displayed on your screen, and a link to these resolutions has also been placed in the chat.
Okay, and so before I call for adjournment, let's just thank everyone who we mentioned in the courtesy resolutions. And I want to say a special thank you to Colin Collette and everyone who participated in the convention liturgies. We got the compline service last night, but we're sorry we weren't able to do the morning prayer, but there'll be a link to that we can go to. But thank you all who participated in this wonderful convention. Even given some of the difficulties we had technologically, you all have done an awesome job. Thank you, staff. Thank you, all the people who have participated in many, many different ways. You all are wonderful. Thank you to our liturgists who didn't get full billing this time, but go on the website and take a look later. They really are wonderful. And so we can feel free to show our appreciation by giving our applause. Thank you. All right, now, and so I'm delighted to announce that our 2025 convention will be held on Saturday, November 22nd, and on Zoom. And so, may I call for a motion to adjourn this meeting? Thank you all for staying put and writing this, what has been a shaky ride all the way, but we'll adjourn if we can and be able to reclaim our Saturday. So is there a motion for adjournment?
Bishop Jim Lanning has a hand raised to make that motion.
Thank you, Jim. You want to go ahead and make that motion?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Bishop Jim Lanning from Trinity and Wheaton. I move to adjourn.
Thank you so much. And is there a second?
Indeed, I believe Ida Butler is in line to second.
Thank you, Ida. Would you go ahead and make that second?
Thank you, Bishop. I second that motion.
Awesome. So it's been moved and seconded that that we can adjourn this 187th convention of the Episcopal Diocese of Chicago. Please indicate your vote using VPoll this one last time, and vote yes to adjourn, vote no to not adjourn.
The vote is now closed. Sophie, can you please display the results?
And it looks like you all want to reclaim your Saturday. And so before I officially adjourn, let me say the blessing, okay? All right then. So, may God bless and keep you. May God's light shine upon you. Be gracious. May God lift up God's countenance, and you all lead with love this day and forevermore. God bless and keep you all. And now I prepare to adjourn this 187th Convention of the Episcopal Diocese of Chicago. God bless and keep all of you. Goodbye.